Hi, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Wonder Snatch. It's Pride Month and today is actually Pink Dot, okay? I'm getting ready for the Pink Dot party tonight and I thought I'd take this time to talk about Stonewall. To make it more clear, Singapore Stonewall. You know how Stonewall, the myth, actually is some sort of a kind of a landmark thing for gay rights in America? Well, you know Singapore had kind of like a Stonewall once, alright? It's called the Rascals Incident and today I'm going to talk all about it and have a couple of guests on to tell us their experience during this incident, alright? And if that's something you want to see, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and ring that bell for post notifications. Alright, see you in a bit. Alright, I'm just gonna get right into this because I'm doing a Zoom call later with a couple of my friends who are at this Rascals Incident, so I want to make sure that I have enough time to get ready. Ugh. I think I'm gonna go in with eyes first today. So, Stonewall in America is an inn where there was this riot in 1969 which everyone seems to link with a modern gay rights movement in America. Definitely it's not the only thing, okay? Even way before Stonewall, there were a lot of, gay associations and underground clubs like the Mattachine Society and stuff like that, which helped gay men get together, underground, when being homosexual was still illegal during that time. And the Stonewall Inn was in Christopher Street, okay? Stonewall happened in 1969, and that's when police raided, okay, the Stonewall Inn. Okay, this wasn't the first time they raided the Stonewall Inn, but it was actually the first time people actually stood up for themselves and fought back. And actually they had 2 whole days of rioting, okay? And it was said that the first stone that was thrown by the customers was by a trans person called Marsha P. Johnson, and also a whole bunch of other drag queens like Zazu Nova and Jackie Hormona. There were apparently lesbians, transgender people, homeless, gay boys there fighting for their rights during that time as well. The story's probably passed down through many mouths, okay, so it's been a bit warped. Even the movie that came out for Stonewall kind of whitewashed everything, right? Kind of like put the cis white male in the center of everything, which is very inaccurate. But the year after Stonewall, that's when the Pride marches started in Christopher Street. So it did have a galvanizing effect for gay rights in America. It was after this event that a whole bunch of activist organizations actually sprung up. Things like the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activist Alliance, okay? And of course, Pride. And of course, Marsha P. Johnson went on to found the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries of Style with her friend Silva Rivera. Okay, going in eyes first, I'm going to do a big pink smoky eye. Uma Beauty today. So it's these examples of police brutality at Stonewall which actually binds, okay, the LGBT cause to things like Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter, because all these oppressive tactics taken by police really help try to keep minorities in place. So that's why it's very important to talk about these issues and, not to forget them. Which brings us to the Singapore Stonewall, okay? So in Singapore, being gay is still illegal. Check my video about 377A. But, people here kind of like live and let live, okay? They kind of like still go about their days and still try to live a normal life. And in the 80s and 90s, gay men, they still had like clubs and bars to go to. And these clubs and bars, these gatherings would change from place to place, okay? It'll be a few months here and a few months there, and it's all really unofficial. Okay, we never had a gay club or a gay bar until I think much more recently. Gay men would go to these bars in the weekends to, meet people like them and, forget about having to pretend to be someone else during the day and at work. So it's a very important place in society. I mean, you can say what you want about nightclubs and bars, but it's really part of the gay culture to go out to bars and go out to nightclubs because that's a place where we can really let loose. I mean, look at Pulse, for example. Okay, Pulse was really a pillar of the gay community in Florida, okay, before it was gunned down, okay? People went there to be with people like them, and it's very important to have things like that, especially for subcultures that are oppressed, like LGBT people. I'm gonna start on these eyes. I'm gonna go with black base first today. Okay, so at Rascals, which was in the Pan Pacific Hotel, on the 30th of May, which is actually 2 weeks ago, so actually it was its 28th anniversary 2 weeks ago. People were living their life, having a good time, and suddenly all the lights came on and the police came in and raided the place. Apparently, they were quite verbally abusive and really rough with the people who were there, okay? And it made them take out their identity cards, and people who didn't have identity cards were shuffled to one side and arrested and kept overnight. Just doing a black smoke first. Just want to keep the black base here because if you go on with the other colors first, the black won't be as striking. Okay, after packing that on, going in the Alex, which is a kind of a deep blue. Let's go around that. Unlike the actual Stonewall, I guess Singaporeans and us Asians are a little bit less confrontational. There wasn't any violence, no one fought back, no one threw anything, okay? But it did galvanize a lot of people to take action, stand up for themselves. Okay, purple. So the blue helps this go into purple. Okay, so organizations such as people like us, PLU, was started after this incident at Rascals. Okay, a lot of people who were at Rascals were actually from AFA, Action for AIDS, which was a NGO that helped to spread public awareness about HIV around that time. And a lot of them were very activists in the communities at that time. Okay, going into Jojo, pink. Okay, wow, very severe eye today. Alright, I'm just going to cut that crease. I'm going for a very 80s look today, so a very 80s pink smoky eye, so I'm going to try to do a bit of yellow, a pop of yellow in here. Now I'm going to use yellow. Just going to go right up against that line there. And after this incident, okay, and all these people were arrested, it was really kind of like an intimidation tactic because apparently there wasn't a warrant, okay, for this raid, and it was kind of like a shakedown kind of thing going on. Okay, and one of the patrons, called Wilfred, actually wrote a letter, okay, to complain to the police about this. And this letter has actually been circulating around and has made its rounds, okay? So today, I'm gonna finish this look off really quickly, okay, because I really need to get ready to speak to them. I'm gonna have Wilfred on and one of his friends, Sheung, who signed the letter as well, to talk about this very, very important part of LGBT history in Singapore, all right? I'm just gonna get ready quickly off camera and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm very, very excited today because I have Wilfred Ong here on my channel to talk about this Rascals incident. Hi, Wilfred, how are you doing? Thank you for coming.
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So, I was just talking about a little bit of this incident, about this Rascals incident. I wasn't out in the scene at the time, so I have no idea. But you know, when I heard...
You know I've been born then.
Yeah, no, I was born. But when I heard about it, it really struck a chord with me because it sounded like we were kind of living in fear around that time. What were your memories of the Rascals incident around the time?
Well, just use your perception of fear. It was one of those periods whereby you look for people in dark corners and in designated public places, and like the Plaza Singapura, the Fort Roads, and you had no social media, you had no, well, internet was not that big at that point in time, so you couldn't connect through the internet, through Tinder, Grindr, whatever. So it was always a kind of a surreptitious connection, touch and go. So it was, and you always were fearful that the person that you were connecting with in public could be an undercover cop. So it was during that period. So yes, there was a lot of tension. There's a lot of fear. Yeah, and just not feeling comfortable with yourself to a large extent.
Yeah, so I can imagine because, nightclubs and bars are really a kind of an escape for gay men and for minorities to get in touch with their community, especially during a time when everything is so underground, right? So
I know of so many couples who kind of like got together through all these
yeah.
club.
So it's very, very important. So what did it feel like when the lights came on and the police came in?
Well, I was very shocked. So I remember I was very shocked, but I wasn't entirely surprised because there was always whispers among different pockets of friends that the police were raiding certain places, but this was the first time for me. So when the lights came on and then someone went onto the podium in plain clothes with their lanyard and then with the megaphone in his hand and then barking orders. And the music stopping. So it jarred me a fair bit, but quickly kind of like gathered my thoughts. I think in situations like this, you need to kind of be a bit level-headed. You can be, and I was very indignant. I was very indignant because I was like, what did we do wrong? I mean, they identified themselves to the police. Like, yeah, fair enough, but what did we do wrong? So those thoughts came to my head, and maybe it's because I was fresh out of law school, so the logical thought process kicked in, and I was like, okay, so what offense did we commit? Why are we being treated like this? And then they were very rude, actually. So I was like, well, why are we being treated like this? So it got me thinking, and then it provoked me into doing something. So while we were being rounded up, I was trying to look for my friends and trying to get together a group of people to go approach the officer in charge. We were not successful because it was mayhem. But then some people were being corralled in different corners because they didn't carry their IC. Me being a law-abiding citizen, I always carried my IC. It's not that the law required it, but it was just out of habit, so I did. So I was basically trying to find my friends and trying to mobilize ourselves at the same time. But I think what I had to do urgently was to get one of my flatmates out because he was rounded up because he didn't have his IC with him.
So actually, some people actually spent the night in jail or in a police station.
When I went to get my friend out, I went back to the flat and then got his IC, and then I went back to the Beach Road police station. When I got there, I remembered that they were all squatting down in front, in some area in front of the police station, squatting down with their hands behind their back, behind their heads, and it was very humiliating as far as I could remember. And I pointed him out and said that I come for my friend. I was waving his IC, and I got him back. So that was the way they were being treated. But I heard that many of them were later released without being charged.
Oh, okay. Sheung's here. I'm gonna let him in now.
Glamorously late as ever.
So Sheung is joining us in the chat. Sheung's actually my dentist, my beautiful teeth. You haven't seen these in years, but they're still very nice.
Are you allowed to advertise, Sheung?
Why not? Can.
Okay, Sheung, we actually started chatting already, and he was just telling me about what he remembered about that night and how he had to go to the police station to get one of his friends out who didn't bring his identity card. What do you remember about the night of the Rascals incident?
It wasn't one of our event nights, right? Wilfred, it was just ordinary night, I think. Yeah, it wasn't an event night. So we had been doing a couple of events there, and then one night we were all there partying away, and then of course, they turn on the lights and pull every line up and get your ICs out. And I remember there were people standing in, all queuing up, and somebody would be asked, like, how often do you come here? Then one famous personality said, first time. And honey, we've seen you every night here, And then there was another one here, there, the little queen, and they asked him, like, how often have you been here? He says, every week, you see. So I think that the thing about it was that nobody felt very, very shy of it. But it was also probably because in a couple of events before that, a few months before that, I remember, Wilfred, you did, and in one of our events, you hand out a sheet of, what do you say when you are confronted by the police?
Oh,
yes.
Wilfred, you had a handbook for this situation.
There was one that went out like that.
Yeah, it did. Because we are doing an AFA outreach, I think. And then, there were lots of undercover cops, as I mentioned to you early on. So lots of people were cottaging at that time. So, it was just a community service thing. So it was just a kind of a check sheet to help folks to what to say, what not to say, and how to react if they are caught in public.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what kind of events did you guys used to hold at Rascals? Was it community events?
I think we only did about one at Rascals before this happened. And a few other places, and subsequently we did Substation and all, but these were all meant as part of the outreach program. So Rascal was just another one of the venue. It wasn't like the only venue.
Okay, so I presume, Sheung, you weren't one of the people who were brought into the station?
I brought my IC, ma.
Always carry IC. Whenever we go clubbing overseas, also always carry IC. If not, cannot get into clubs.
I see.
Yeah. So Wilfred, and the other thing, of course, is the infamous letter that you wrote. So what prompted you to actually write this letter?
What prompted me to write this letter was the fact that it's the most logical legal response that you could give in a kind of situation like this is to write a formal complaint, because I felt that there was no infringement of the law, so I was very curious as to what was the basis for them behaving in the way that they did towards people like us. So the best way was to actually just send out a letter to them. I thought about it, and knew that the civil service in Singapore, they are very sensitive to letters. And if your letters is structured in such a way that is logical and is not full of emotion and angst, and you cut straight to the chase, and you point out, where you think that they may have made a mistake, then you will get their attention. So I tried to get a few people to back me up by co-signing it. So I was a little bit disappointed, to be very honest, because I only found a handful of people who were willing to put their names down. I think Sheung was one of them who was first.
Yes, that's why you're here, Sheung. So Sheung, do you remember what went through your mind when you were asked to sign a letter like this? Literally just putting your name down in opposition to something that the police had done?
I was young and naive.
And you were a civil servant, right?
Yes, I was civil servant. I was young and naive, but I think it was partly because I had just come back from my master's overseas. So you're very galvanized into civic mindedness and things like that. And to me, it felt it was the right thing to do, and you just did better than I did. And partly because Wilfred and I were running this for quite a while by then already, this whole project of outreach, and it seemed natural that that was what we felt, and that's what we should say, you see. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, you got the police to actually apologize. They had a response which basically said that, which didn't say in so many words, but basically that what happened was not supposed to happen. It was more of a mistake. And there was going to be some sort of inquiry. Well, how did you feel when you got that response, Wilfred?
They called me up first to basically kind of like test the waters, because I think they wanted to see how far I would go with this, because they knew that they did something illegal, and to have headlines blasting the Singapore police doing something illegal, it was just not something that happens every day. So I felt that I didn't want to push it too hard. What I wanted was them to acknowledge that they made a mistake. And secondly, I just wanted them to stop doing what they did.
Which they did.
They did,
yeah.
So, exactly. So the assistant superintendent who called me assured me that this would be the reaction. So it was more of off-the-cuff kind of conversation with him, behind-the-scenes conversation. That was followed up by the letter. So the letter basically summarized what we discussed, what we agreed. But I remember that the letter was a bit self-serving as well, because they said that, we acted because there were complaints about the place being overcrowded and there were some identity issues. So I was like, what? What identity issues are we talking about? So they were basically trying to cover their tracks, but I didn't want to push it. So I got what I wanted, so I backed off.
This incident and the letter have been compared to Stonewall. What do you think about that?
Nah, it was just another incident, and if you look at it in the whole series of events, I didn't think it was such a big hoo-ha about the whole thing. And after that, everybody just went back and we carried on. Our projects carried on, our outreach programs and everything. It wasn't like a death knell or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of more of a very civil kind of a brush with the police. It's very unlike America, where America, things devolve into violence so easily that things can become such a landmark event. Whereas in Singapore, maybe, if cell phones were around at that time, maybe it would have been a different story, but it somehow we managed to move past that and carry on with other forms of activism. Is that fair?
for me, it was like a Stonewall, but with a Singapore flavor, I would say. I mean, there were no muscular, burly drag queens attacking police with the stilettos, you know, and us marching down the streets and, you know, overturning cars and burning stuff. No, it wasn't like that. But what happened was also similar. We were visibly attacked, okay, but in a way which was, I think, humiliating, but it was not physical violence against gay men and women. We organized ourselves, right? And at the same time, we fought back. We fought back through sending letters and then having phone calls behind the scenes. It was a, you know, Singapore way of like of resolving issues. So to me, it was akin to Stonewall, but with a Singapore twist. And I'm glad, because at the end of the day, people have used it as a reference point as the birth of the consciousness of gay people in Singapore to reclaim what should have been theirs.
Absolutely. But I have to still mention that right now, Section 377A is still a thing. And I think it's just because of this law that the police actually have the reason to treat people as if they were criminals. So I think it's really important that we remember that this law is very discriminatory and very oppressive, in fact, and that we really should try to find a way to increase empathy amongst the people who want to keep the law so that we can try to repeal it, hopefully in the next few years.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. It's just, you know, a kind of a big dark label that, you know, all of us carry in front of us, and it was put there. You know, we didn't acquire it. It was put there on us. So it was just like during the World War II, where people had patches, different patches, and gay men and women had the pink triangle with them. So it was just strapped onto our chests. So I think that's not fair. We should get it off. So I agree with you.
One thing that I want to also point out is that all three of us here are basically Chinese men with a certain amount of privilege. Okay, you both mentioned that you came back, you know, from overseas, and you had probably a little bit more courage to stand up. What do you have to say to people of color and to trans individuals these days who may be feeling that they are kind of left out of the conversation?
I think that the non-Chinese LGBTQ people have a lot more that they have to fight for, because I'm sure that we are all aware now that, you know, racism is rearing its ugly head. And even among, you know, gay people, for example, when you go on Grindr, Tinder, whatever apps, people are still saying things which are, you know, racist. So it's alive and kicking. So I think that non-Chinese LGBTQ people in Singapore, they had it harder. You know? So all I can say to them, from my experience, little experience that I've had in my early years, is that nothing is given to you in a silver platter. You know, you've got to fight for it. You have to change things yourself, right? For me, you know, when the lights came on in Rascals, you know, I was full of indignation, right? And I use the word in a very neutral sense for what it means. I was indignant, but you need to channel your indignation in a way that works to get things done in Singapore, because, you know, we live in a very tightly controlled society. So you'll be banging your head against a brick wall, in my opinion, if you do things in a particular way that may very well work in a different system, context, country.
And get some sort of backlash, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it may just have the opposite effect to what you are hoping to get, right?
Exactly.
So there's an intelligent way of getting it.
Those are actually all the questions I have. I really, really appreciate both of you coming on to talk to me about this. I really wanted to hear it from people who were actually there that night. And I think I'm off to watch Pink Dot now. Are you guys going to watch the stream? Okay, so happy Pink Dot, happy Pride, and thank you for coming on.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so that was my chat with Wilfred Ong and Sheung about the night at Rascals, which was Singapore's Stonewall, but with, you know, as Wilfred said, a distinct Singaporean flavor. I think there is a way to get to equality and to end all these homophobic laws in Singapore without violence, without horrible protests which will turn other people against us. I think they have very good advice there that we have to find ways, clever ways, to talk about our experiences and to increase empathy in Singapore, alright? And that's one of the reasons why I started the Action for AIDS Fund for the Arts, okay? To create art and to create film and stuff like that that will spread the message of love and tell our stories. Alright, so if you like this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and ring that bell for post notifications. Alright, I'm off to watch Pink Dot and I'll see you next time. Bye. Pink neon, early 90s drag. This is a full gown. My other videos. I did one on 377A there, and I did one on Asian representation, and I got trolled. Bye.